Hello. I want to ask you, have you ever seen that television game show called Let's Make a Deal? Now, I remember it best from the old days when Monty Hall was the guy in charge of the thing. Now there's a new edition of it, and I forget the host's name, but it's still the same thing. You get people on there, you give them things. Let's say you give them $100, and then you say, do you want to hold on to that $100 or do you want to trade it for what's behind door number 3? And when that happens, the tension is palpable. You see the person almost break into a cold sweat. I got $100 and I may be able to trade it off and get something much better value, or I might go bust. And that's the whole thrill of the show, because we all know that feeling, what it is to try to decide which way to go. That's what I want to talk about today, is decisions. Making decisions and moving along with them. It's always the very first step in getting anything done or accomplished in your life. Now, if we only had a few options available to us every day, this would be very, very easy. But we don't. We have so many options, so many things to choose from that it's mind-boggling. I go to my office. On my desk, I have a file folder, or a rack, if you will, and it's filled probably with 12 to 15 different files. Each one of those files has its own to-do list. Each one of those files has a multitude of things to do, or projects to plan, or ideas to think about, and sometimes it's just almost more than I can begin to imagine. All right, I build guitars. The process is a wonderful process, but the very beginning of it is sometimes a little tough, because there's so many decisions to make, so many choices you have to make. What kind of a guitar I'm gonna build? What kind of wood am I gonna use? What's the scale length gonna be? The list goes on and on and on. And this is true in every aspect of our life today. Life is complicated. There's just so much to think about. So, how do I escape from this? Some days I think, boy, I just want to go home and escape from this. I'll go home and watch TV. This could be a bad mistake, because now, instead of like 3 or 4 channels to choose from, now I have like 300 to 400 different channels to choose from. By the time I flick through all the channels and so forth and decide on something, now it's 45 minutes or an hour later, and I feel almost more frustrated than I did before. This overwhelmed feeling that this gives to us is not only uncomfortable, sometimes it's just mind-numbing. It brings on its own kind of paralysis, that we just can't get anything done because we can't choose. When I was a kid, one day my parents took me and my brothers to an amusement park, and we wanted to play some of the games there, of course. But we were so young, I was so young, that there was a game there called Duck Pond. And you've probably seen this. Maybe you've participated in it. And Duck Pond was this simple thing where this big trough was filled with water, and there was a current in there, and it was filled with these little yellow ducks. And as the ducks would float by, all you had to do was pick a duck. And when you picked the duck, there was a number on the bottom of the duck, and it would correspond to a prize. You always got a prize. Now, the prize went everywhere from this big, huge stuffed bear that was up there all the way down to the lowest prize, I think, was something called Chinese handcuffs. Perhaps you remember those. Chinese handcuffs, you put this thing on this finger, put your other finger in, and the more you tried to pull your fingers out, you couldn't do it. So anywhere between that, Chinese handcuffs and a stuffed bear, this is a prize you got. But I stood there and stood there and stood there trying to decide which one should I get. Do I get the one that's going to give me this or this or this? And finally my mother said, just pick a duck. Just pick a duck. It doesn't matter. Well, she was right, of course. There was certain wisdom to that. It's like in life, you don't get anywhere or get any kind of prize at all unless you first make up your mind and pick a duck. Now, this is true, see, not only with this children's game, it's true with ideas. I'm a collector of ideas, as you know, and I have all these ideas all the time, and sometimes you just have to pick one. Just pick one. Get off the center and pick one. A to-do list. Just pick one of them. You don't have to pick the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole thing today. Just pick one. This does a couple of things. Once you decide that you're going to do something and you pick something, even if it's totally at random, and you pick it and you get it done, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. You've done something for the day. And more importantly, it sets off its own momentum. It is absolutely true, this old thing that says bodies at motion tend to stay at motion. Bodies at rest. Bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. Minds at rest tend to stay at rest. You get the deal, all right? But you gotta get moving, and it all begins with this one thing: pick a duck. So, I know you got a lot going on. I know you have thousands of things to think about, thousands of things to decide. You've got all this stuff going on, and it would be easy just to sit back and say, I'm too overwhelmed. I'm telling you, simplify. Pick a duck.